Well, hello guys, and welcome back to part 3 of this series of wrapping my Fiesta ST. Where we left things last time, I was just about to get started on laying down the top layer, which includes the multicoloured stripes you see here for the Martini. Following the very similar process to what was done for the white layer underneath, I laid out the vinyl, marked up where the corners needed to meet the bodywork, and started applying. It was actually very tricky to do. It's the first time I've ever done anything exactly like this with such big decals. The plain single colour parts are actually relatively straightforward to press on, and they respond quite well to the heat gun to flatten them out if you get any lumps or bubbles. But we'll come on to the printed vinyl and some of the challenges a bit later on in the video. And a lovely bit of Valvoline sponsorship going on there. A shame to say I've always used Castrol up to now, but I may well give their stuff a go. I then moved on to the roof line you can see here. So I overlaid and cut in a little extra blue line that you can see around there and that kind of heart shape on the roof, and started to then use a wet spray to apply the side stripes. And that's ended up with a much smoother, much more consistent looking result than was possible with the back of the car. So I'm learning all the time, not afraid to make a few mistakes and try things out, but you can really see here the extra creases and bubbles and some of the problems that I ran into with the back. But again, it's a good 6-footer. You stand back, you look at it, and hey, it kind of looks like a rally car. That's what I'm going for. Here is the trusty spray bottle, which I found just putting a thin mist of water was enough to be able to give you a little bit of float in the panel and to ease out the air bubbles as you're squeegeeing across the stripe. The other advantage of adding a bit of water reduces the amount of scratching or damage you do to the vinyl itself when you're squeegeeing. So making sure to get a good line up between the top and bottom of the Martini stripe and then squeegeeing out from that point. So what I did was work up to the edge of the trim piece and then later come through and heat and shape it there, but I made sure 95% of that panel was spot on. Then taking off the protective film over the top to help lay it down. You can see it's just silky smooth underneath. I'm really pleased with just a little bit of water. I get a superior result than was possible trying to stretch it like I did with the air release vinyl. So quite forgiving. You can work out any creases underneath the surface, but again you need to make sure all the water's out as well. A bit of heat gun also does wonders for trying to improve the appearance, but you can overdo it quite easily. A top tip here, if you're trying to get a nice smooth edge, is to take the opposite body panel to the one that you're using and run the knife along that edge. Which is exactly what I did here. And then to smooth that round, you can use the heat gun to kind of stress relieve and let that sit nicely. I tucked in the upper edge of the Martini stripe under the window. I tucked in the upper edge of the Martini stripe under the window, and that looks pretty good. I then followed those Martini stripes on the top edge of the window up and over onto the roof. So here's the finished part. And I've started applying the side manufacturer sponsor decals, and I think using a laser level is a top tip for me. So okay, apologies for this one bouncing around, but it's just to show you that with these self-leveling systems, about 20 quid's worth of laser level, you can get stuff all to line up quite nicely. So here I'm squeegeeing out one of the bigger Telefonica decals and working off that backing sheet. I found a kind of side to side sort of 45-degree jiggling motion to be the best way to get that to come off and leave everything behind underneath without any tearing or any problems. I didn't have to use a heat gun to get this to sit nicely. I found just running the squeegee over the surface was sufficient. Actually get quite a nice result on those single colours. So the printed vinyl doesn't have any air release in it, so again that's why adding that water is so important. But the single colours seem to lay on quite nicely from creative vinyl. So here's the finished look on one side of the car. And now taking it outside, I've been standing next to this thing probably no more than 3 or 4 feet away for the last sort of week or so working on it. You don't really take it all in until you can step back a good 10, 20 feet and look at it again. So So again, using that laser level on the side of the car to pick up on the lower edge of the vinyl, I just literally pressed it onto the side of my workbench, holding it on there using the self-leveling functionality, and now working out the removal tape. Using the squeegee at that sort of 30-degree or so angle, working out any of the bubbles and the creases in the vinyl. Really important to look at where the body lines are. There's a kind of swage mark that runs along the side of the panel to pick up on that. So now it's time to attack the front quarters and to lay in the racing stripe. Again, making full use of that laser level to shoot a line along the centre of the car. You can see here, so I've kind of gone from the centre of the bonnet as measured up to the aerial point on the roof. I did make a bit of a mistake. I had planned to have a solid red racing stripe across the bonnet, but unfortunately managed to stick the vinyl to itself and I ripped it, so I decided to cut that out and order a new piece. Okay, so that's the biggest parts of the job now complete. We're now on to the finishing details. I've managed to get myself a set of Engineer stickers to put in the driver position on the back with a Union Jack, so that looked pretty cool when it's done. So before we get started on the final bit of the wrap, I've got to finish off the work on the door and the window regulator. You can see the door handle isn't currently fitted at the moment, and that's to make it easier to get the door card, the lock mechanism out and fit that new window regulator. So once that's all done, I'll be able to get this side of the car all finished up, check all the fitment, run around all the edges again with a hot gun to try and set the adhesive and make sure we don't have anything pulling up. So that all seemed to work out quite nicely. It was about an hour and a half's work to get that window regulator replaced. Everything had to be pulled out from the door and refitted. Very pleased with the result. So to give an example of some of the challenges I've run into with the project, obviously the decals are not designed for a Fiesta. They're actually for a Ford Focus or an RS or something of that size. So to fit the bigger decals on a smaller car, I'm having to be quite creative. So for example, with these Telefonica Movistar jobs that go on the front, I'm going to have to think really carefully about how I fit them and where they fold around the corner. So it's adding quite a lot of time into the project that I wasn't expecting. But the end result's looking pretty good. I'm very happy with how they're all adhering onto the surface, how easy they've been to apply. With a little bit of water actually gives you a few more options for repositioning things, especially if you don't have air release in the vinyl. I didn't realise how lucky I was when I was doing the white backing to have the air release present in the vinyl itself. So you can literally press your thumb on any bubbles and they will tend to disappear. You can stretch it around the corners. It's much more forgiving than what you can achieve with the printed vinyls that you see here for the multicoloured designs. You have to be very, very careful. They crease, they bubble. Even with water, it's a real challenge to get a good finish on those. It's what I'd like to call a pretty decent 6-footer. I wouldn't get too close. You'll see the imperfections, but at a distance it looks the part. And I think that's what I'm going for, really. So the next challenge, I suppose, is how I'm going to protect them, how I'm going to look after the car going forward. I think the intention will be to use ceramic spray wax to coat the paint, put a bit of silicon oxide down, so at least it keeps, bird droppings and all that stuff at bay, and hopefully a bit of resistance to things like bug splats and stone chips and that kind of thing. Anyway, but the paint underneath's in pretty good nick. I was really encouraged by the side stripes that came off. I didn't have any issues with peeling lacquer or discoloration or paint fade, so I think I can probably get away with it the way it is for a few years, certainly as it lives in the garage most of the time. It's not getting exposed to UV, which will discolour, it will break down the adhesives and cause problems. So yeah, I may well get another 3, 4, 5 years out of this and enjoy a few track days and road trips without having to worry too much about what's underneath. Okay, so let's talk about roof scoops. If you look at the real rally car, they've got a little hole in the top of the roof to allow airflow in for the drivers, provide a little bit of cooling, because I guess they don't have the normal blower fans and other things that you might have in a road car. But for a road going Fiesta, does it all go a bit Halford's parts bin? So we've got to be a bit careful not to cheapen the car and make it look too tacky, says the man covering it in stickers to make it look like a rally car. But I've got a hastily wrapped eBay special here. Clearly there's no hole underneath, so I might be able to tell a lie with a bit of black vinyl to act like a hole or something like that underneath. But you can see the indentation here for where we've got the aerial mounting point roughly in the centre of the car. If I were to stick this over the top, you kind of get a feeling for, you know, the visual impression that you have. It maybe looks a little bit better than if you were to just have the traditional aerial mounting point. And obviously once you've made the holes in the vinyl, it's not watertight from the outside anymore, so that's a bit of a trade-off. I'm really struggling to know what to do. In my view, it's a bit of fun having that on there, but when you get back up here and you take a look back, I don't know if it really adds a lot, if it's really necessary to have that. And if I put the Martini logo across the top of the car at the back, that Martini logo will be much more visible with the traditional aerial than if it's on a roof scoop and it's kind of curved over. It's a really tough decision to make. But I think I'm probably going to go without the roof scoop for now, put the traditional aerial on, have a nice flat surface there instead. Really show off those lovely Martini stripes down the centre of the car a bit better than maybe I can with the eBay special. Maybe I'll give away this to one of you lucky subscribers out there. If you're interested, pop a comment below and I'll get it in the post to one of you. Okay, thanks a lot. Right, one last bit, I promise, of Halford's parts bin. I bought some bonnet vents that aren't actually bonnet vents. They're just curved black plastic with kind of grilly shapes in them. So to the eye of the young gentleman revving his car in the McDonald's car park, it looks ace. The question is, does it belong on my rally-inspired Fiesta? So I'm going to hastily position them on the bonnet and we'll have a quick look. Okay, so full comedy effect bonnet. Vents that aren't vents on. It looks alright from sort of this distance. You look at it and go, oh yeah, that's sports right there. But when you get up close, it does just kind of, it just lacks something, you know. It's just really it's just really lacking in proper performance, isn't it? So I think they're probably not going to go on the car as well. But I won't waste the roof scoop and the bonnet vents together. Maybe there's a clever design that I can come up with for the two. Okay, it's high risk, but I've gone for an aircraft configuration, so we've got the bonnet vents now forming part of that, with wings either side to hide the washer jets, which is a touch of class. No, just no. They're coming off. So with the front of the wrap now complete, ready to roll the car out the garage and take a look at the finished result. Absolutely incredible. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. Just 2.5 weeks ago the car was plain blue, no decals, had been completely stripped back, and in the meantime I've gone about learning a new skill, picking up some videos on YouTube, just having a try, and actually ended up with something that I'm really proud of. And now with a nice finishing touch, the Union Jack going on next to the Engineer logo on the side of the car, and the job is complete. So just before I go, I'll give you a shout out to let you know that there'll be a follow-up video where I'm taking the Fiesta to its first car show and see how we get on. So we've reached the end of the new look for the Fiesta. You could say the project is all wrapped up. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and add comments below, share your projects. Always keen to find out what you guys are up to out in the community. So thanks very much for watching. For now, Engineer out.